We recently made a video about marking gauges, which is an ancient tool that still has a bunch of uses in the modern workshop. I highly recommend you watch that video because learning how to properly use a marking gauge can really take your craft to the next level. I'll link to it below this video. But as often happens when you discuss any woodworking topic, it raises other questions that are equally interesting or important. In this case, the question is, when might it be better to use a pencil or a knife as compared to a marking gauge? That's what this short video is all about. There are all sorts of situations where you need to mark a line on a workpiece. Sometimes that mark must be very precise. Sometimes it doesn't have to be. Sometimes the mark is a visual reference, such as a line that you're going to cut to. Other times it's a physical locator to place a cutting tool on. Because various situations require different types of marks, a woodworker may require different types of marking tools. This is the vest I wear when I'm working in the workshop, usually off camera, and there's pockets for all kinds of tools in it. But several of the tools are for marking, so we're going to talk a little bit about them and why I use them. For example, when I'm laying out the location for project parts on rough milled boards, I'm not looking for precision. These aren't my final measurements. I'm just deciding how to break down a board. In this case, I need marks that are easy to see and from a tool that won't break on the rough surface of a board. I used to use a lumber crayon, but a few years back I switched to a thick lead holder like this one because it's not only very durable, but it's also a little more precise than a crayon, so I may write legibly on smaller pieces. I love this lead holder. I don't know how I got by without it. It's also useful for coloring a surface for jointing or for sanding. If you don't know why you might want to color a surface for sanding, I recommend the sanding video we made a while back. I'll link to that below as well. But this thick lead isn't well suited for making precise marks for a project part's final dimensions. In that case, I used to use a wood pencil. I like wood pencils because they have an old school feel. It reminds me of when I was in school. And the thick lead is pretty durable. If you like wood pencils, I recommend a good one because high quality cedar and graphite is much more durable than the cheap pencils you get from the dollar store. Ticonderoga still makes the best wood pencils. I also recommend an electric pencil sharpener because they're so handy just to walk up to and touch up the point as it rounds over. You see, that's one of the downsides of the old school wood pencil. After a few marks, it becomes too blunt to produce a fine line, and it must be sharpened frequently. Another downside is when you put this type of pencil in an apron pocket and then you bend over, either the point breaks or the whole thing can snap in half. A long time ago, I made a little tip video about putting the cap from an old Sharpie marker in the pocket to create a holster that will better protect the pencil's point. I don't use wood pencils much anymore because I finally found a mechanical pencil that will hold up to the demands of a woodworker. By the way, none of the marking tools in this video are sponsored. I buy them with my own money, and I have bought these for years. I feel like I have to make that clear because I'm going to be praising these mechanical pencils, which I've been using for about 5 years now, so much that some people are going to think I'm making a commercial for the manufacturer, but I'm not. I like these mechanical pencils for a lot of reasons. They're metal, they're durable, and they're very comfortable. But I mostly love them because the tip withdraws into the barrel when you push the top of the clip. Most mechanical pencils leave the lead exposed, which inevitably breaks off. You can push that lead back up inside when you're done, but you have to consciously remember to do that. And that fine metal point that's on all mechanical pencils is very fragile. If it gets bent even a little bit, the pencil won't work anymore. For years, I hated using mechanical pencils in the workshop for that reason. But this pencil retracts both the lead and the tip automatically as I naturally squeeze the clip to slip it into my pocket. I don't have to consciously think about it. I love that. You'll notice that I have more than one in my pocket, and that brings us back to another thing that makes a mechanical pencil superior to other marking tools. It's always hard to find the right balance between creating a fine line for precise cuts and having a durable lead that won't break. Fortunately, mechanical pencils come in various lead thicknesses, so you have lots of options. For most marks, I like a 0.5 or a 0.7 lead. I actually have 2 of these in my pocket because I sometimes lay one on the bench instead of putting it back in my pocket where it goes, and it's nice to have the backup when I need it on the other side of the shop. So that accounts for 2 of these pencils. Why do I have 4? Because there are 2 other lead sizes that I find essential. One is the 0.9. This is thick and durable. It's not as strong as that lead holder that I use for rough layout on unmilled boards. But if I do want a precise mark on a rough surface, the number 9 is what I reach for. On the other end of the spectrum is the 0.3. This is a fragile lead. You have to be careful with it, but it's ultra precise. So precise it may be used for fine joinery such as dovetails. I bought these in a 4-piece set with all 4 sizes together, but they may be found easily in singles as well. I'll put links to them below this video. Now what about marking knives? Have fine-pointed mechanical pencils made knives obsolete? Not at all. A marking knife will make the finest, most precise line. And like a knife-style cutting gauge, the line left by a marking knife can provide a physical reference into which you can drop a cutting tool for very precise joinery. Marking knives also sever wood fibers, something a pencil can't do. This can help you eliminate tear out when making crosscuts either by hand or at the table saw, and even when working with the router. But it takes a little practice to properly use a marking knife. For example, it can be difficult to get a precise mark if you place the bevel against the edge of a square or a ruler. If your marking knife is beveled on both sides, you must be careful to tilt it properly so you have a flat surface along the edge of the square as you make your line. For this reason, some marking knives feature a single bevel, so you can place the flat back side against your straight edge. Of course, the downside of this is it can be awkward to mark on the other side of your ruler unless you're ambidextrous. So my favorite marking knife style is actually the spear point. This gives me a flat surface to put against my straight edge no matter what side I want to mark on. Now that you know which marking tools I like to use, let's review when it is best to use each type of tool. I use that thick lead holder for general imprecise marking of rough sawn boards and for coloring surfaces that must be milled or sanded. If I need a more precise mark on a rough surface, I use the 0.9 mechanical pencil. For day-to-day marking, I like a 0.7 or a 0.5 because of the combination of precision and durability I get from it. For very precise marks, such as for joinery, I use a 0.3 mechanical pencil, but I have to be careful with it. It does break easy. If I need a positive location for a cutting tool, such as a chisel, or I want to sever wood fibers for precise cuts, then I'll use a spear point style marking knife. And as explained in previous videos, a marking gauge still has an important role in my shop as well, particularly for joinery. I'll link to all these marking tools I like to use below this video. Marking tools are not expensive. There's no reason to limit yourself to just one when matching the proper tool to the job is a fundamental of good woodworking. I hope this tutorial helps you decide what's best for you. See you next time. If you sharpen your tools by hand, do yourself a favor. Try one of Trend's diamond stones. You can start with a card, but before long, you'll want a full bench stone because these things cut fast, they stay perfectly flat, and you can go from stone to strop to wood and be back to work in under a minute. I'll link to my favorites in the notes below this video. Wait, don't go yet. If you're new here, please subscribe and remember to ring the bell. I would really appreciate that. Give us a thumbs up, or better yet, leave us a comment. I always read them. And be sure to check out the latest issue of Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal. It's always packed with tips, tricks, and tutorials designed to make you a better woodworker.